on the base, we're on 18b, and the art scroll, it's 18b3, top of the page. Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Masli Lo, Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Now, so Rashi explains what is this referring to? We had yesterday, we had the Gemara of Rabbi Loza and the name Rav Oshia, right? That's how we started off yesterday. Rabbi Loza says the name Rav Oshia, that Bikurim Hanocha Ma'kevet Behem. That Bikurim, the first fruits, the placing of the first fruits in front of the Mizbeach, in front of the altar, is Ma'akev. And unless that is done, unless the fruits are placed in front of the Mizbeach, the Kohen cannot eat the Bikurim. He has to go ahead, has to wait until the first fruits are placed in front of the Mizbeach. That's the Hanacha. And then the Psukim are cited. We have to see exactly at which point the Psukim are recited. But the Kriya, he said, the reading of the Psukim is not Ma'akev, right? That's what he said yesterday. That was the quote of Rabbi Lozda in the name of Oshia. Good morning, Jaime.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Okay, we are on 18b3, top of the page, on the first column, 18b3. We said yesterday, we quoted Rabbi Loza in the name of Rabbi Hoshia, that Bikurim, the first fruits, the Hanacha, the placing of the first fruits in front of the Mizbeach, in front of the altar, is the key. That's, if you don't do that, if it's not placed in front of the altar, the Kohen cannot eat the first fruits. He also stated, Rabbi Loza named Rabbi Oshia, that the Kriya, the reading of Psukim, is not going to hold you back from eating the Bikurim. Even though there's a mitzvah to recite the Psukim, but the recital is not going to hold the Kohen back from eating the first fruits. That was stated, Rabbi Loza in the name of Hoshia. However, our Gemara opens up today that Rav Acha bar Yaakov, a different rabbi, Matni La K'Rav Askem Rabbi Yochanan. He had his version of the Gemara was not Rabbi Loza in the name of Hoshia. Rather, it was quoted in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the famous Rabbi Yochanan, who was from Eretz Israel, the Holy Land. That he was the author. He was the one Adam who said that statement, that the main thing is the placement and the reading is secondary. So the Gemara says, now based on that reading that he had, that the statement was stated by Rabbi Yochanan. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. So because he understands that the author of that statement was Rabbi Yochanan, he has a contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan. So he says, Rav Acha bar Yaakov Matni Lo K'Rav Askem Rabbi Yochanan. He said that quote in the name of Rabbi Yochanan because she laid Rabbi Yochanan at Rabbi Yochanan. Because he had the quote that the Hanacha, the placement is the key. He has that in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Now he has another ruling in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, which seems on surface to be contradictory to that previous ruling. That's the setup of the Gemara. The setup of the Gemara is that he has a question on Rabbi Yochanan, That's going to be the Gemara's. He has one statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan indicating one thing, and now he has another statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan indicating something else. So that's going to be his the setup. Like you say, you have in the name of Rav Avadia Yosef. Rav Avadia Yosef says this, but I have another ruling in the name of Rav Avadia Yosef.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Say that? Good morning, Yaron. Good to see you. And I think Mr. Batesh, is on probably. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Amy.
So the Gemara says like this. Yaron and everybody else who just joined, the Gemara, what we're up to the Gemara is that the Gemara has a question according to the version of the Gemara that states that Rabbi Yochanan says that the main thing is the placing of the fruits in front of the altar, and the reading of the psukim is secondary. It's not going to hold you back. Only the placement of the fruits. We have a contradiction. Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan actually say that the main thing is the placing of the fruits? Rabbi Yochanan Bikurim. Did Rabbi Yochanan say Bikurim Hanacha Makevet Behem? That hanacha, the placement, is the thing that holds you back from fulfilling the mitzvah. Kriya and the reading of the psukim, ein ma'akevet behem. The reading of the psukim is not so vital. It doesn't hold you back from fulfilling the mitzvah. But v'habayim inei Rav Asi Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan the following question: Bikurim meimatai. Bikurim, at what point do the Kohanim have a right to eat? Is it permitted for the Kohanim to eat the first fruits? And Amalei, and Rabbi Yochanan responded, Haru'uyim l'kriya. The fruits, good morning, Daniel. Good to see you. Haru'uyim l'kriya. The fruits that are fit to be, that have psukim, to be read. What does that mean? As we said, fruits that were separated between and brought between Shavuot and Sukkot. Shavuot and Sukkot is the time that they're harvesting the fruits, right? Shavuot is called the Zman HaKatzir, the time of harvesting. So that's a time of special happiness when you're reaping the rewards, the fruits. That's the time that the Torah tells us to recite the Psukim, the verses that accompany the Bikurim. So during that time of the year, Haru'uyim l'kriya, between Shavuot and Sukkot, Mishakara Alehem, only when you read the Psukim, only when the Psukim are read, that's when the Kohanim have a right to eat the first fruits. So this is going against what we had stated in Rabbi Yochanan before. Beforehand, we had Rabbi Yochanan says that the reading is not so vital to the point that the Kohanim cannot eat before the reading of the Psukim. And here it says, what, Mr. Safti? That the reading is the vital, the reading is the key battery. And the first fruits that are brought between Sukkot, after Sukkot, between Sukkot and Shavuot, so those first fruits, more than Netanel, the first fruits that are brought between Sukkot and Shavuot, where you cannot read the Psukim, there's no reading of Psukim, and here you separated it between Sukkot and Shavuot. The main thing is, it has to see the front of the Beit HaMikdash. What does that mean? When you enter the courtyard.
Can you go back, Rabbi?
What do you say?
Can you go back on this case? What exactly the difference between the first one and this one?
Yes. I just want to bring Netanel up to date. Netanel, we are on 18b3 and the first column, middle of the first column. We're saying the following. There's two different times of the year. When it comes to first fruits, there are two different times of the year. There's the time of the year between Shavuot and Sukkot, and then there's a time of the year between Sukkot and Shavuot. That's how the year is broken up. From Shavuot to Sukkot and Sukkot to Shavuot. What's the difference between Shavuot and Sukkot? More than Nathan. Between Shavuot and Sukkot is the time of the year that's the happier time of the year in a sense, because you're regarding fruits. It's the happier time of the year because you're bringing in you're cutting the fruits and you're bringing them in, and it's eventually bringing them into the house. So, being that that's the case. That's the time of the year that the Torah indicates that you need to recite certain psukim of thanks to Hashem, of recognition that He brought you into the Holy Land. We went to Arame Ovid, love and try to destroy us, and we went to Egypt, and we came to the Holy Land, and now I'm bringing the first fruits, right? Say that again? Any time between Shavuot and Sukkot. So you have most of Sivan, Tammuz, of Elul, half of Tishrei. So you have about 44.5 months of the year when you would bring the Bikurim, when you bring the first fruits, you would recite Psukim along with the bringing of the fruits, special Psukim from Pashas Kisavot. But if you bring the fruits, but if you separate the fruits after Sukkot, then you just bring the fruits, you go to the Beit HaMikdash, you do the process, but there's no recital of Psukim, right? That's what we said now. So Rabbi Yochanan goes on record now and says that when could the Kohanim eat the fruits? The first fruits you bring to the Kohanim. So he says it depends on the time of the year. In the time of the year that the recital of the verses are stated, the psukim are stated, meaning to say between Shavuot and Sukkot, during that time of the year, entering the courtyard, coming into the courtyard of Beit HaMikdash is not enough to allow the Kohanim at that point. Now the Kohanim can eat the fruits. Once you came in, now at this point, anytime further, once the Kohanim gets the fruit, it's good enough. No, you have to, between Shavuot and Sukkot, there has to be the recital of the verses of Psukim. But if it's after Sukkot, where there's no recital of Psukim, then just once you came into the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, even without putting it in front of the Mizbeach, it's now we have a new term that we never had until now. We've been working with two variables, two items we've been working with. We've been working either with the reading of the Psukim, that some say, good morning, Simon, that the reading of the Psukim is the key, and we're working with the other opinion that the key is, good morning, Mr. Haber, that not the reading of the Psukim is the key, but rather the placing in front of the Mizbeach is the key, right? Until now, we've been working with two possibilities, and we saw an argument between different rabbis whether the key element is the reciting of the verses of Psukim, or is the key element placing it in front of the altar, in front of the Mizbeach, in front of the altar. That was the two, and then the Kohen would take it and eat it. That were the two opinions. Now the Gemara is now introducing a third opinion, Mr. Hayes. What's the third opinion? The third idea is just walking into the courtyard. You coming with the first fruits into the courtyard, once you come, you make your trip, and you bring your first fruits and you come into the Beit HaMikdash, you enter the courtyard. Now the Kohen gets the fruits. Now the Kohen can eat it. But the Gemara says that time period that would work only at a time when you cannot recite the psukim, and a time when there's no psukim to say, there's no verses. When is that? Between Sukkot and Shavuot. Bless you. Between Sukkot and Shavuot, there are no psukim to recite, because you're post the harvest season. So you're not in the happiest time of the year. So therefore, there's no psukim. Therefore, just when you walk into the courtyard, at that point, the Kohanim could already eat the first fruit. So that's what the Gemara now, we have a real contradiction. We have two different statements in the name of the same rabbi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Now remember, Rabbi Yochanan is a later rabbi. He's from the Amoraim period. So we have two different statements in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Good morning, Mark. We have two different statements in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, and each statement is taking us in an opposite direction. One statement tells us the main thing is the recital of psukim, meaning at a time of the year when you're able to say the psukim. Good morning, Mr. Silverman. At the time of the year, and Yaron and everybody else that's on. Good morning, Mark. So at the time of the one statement in Rabbi Yochanan says the key is between Shavuot and Sukkot, you must say the psukim. If you don't say the psukim, the Kohanim can't eat it. And we have a different statement. He says, no, it's not about the psukim. You don't need to say the psukim in order for you to go ahead and to eat it. It's all about placing in front of the altar. So that's what the Gemara. Now this is going to be the Gemara is going to have we have a contradiction, a quote in the name of Yochanan, and each quote, one quote is going against the opposite quote. We'll see it inside the Gemara now.
Rabbi,
yeah.
the machloket is only between Shavuot and Sukkot. Because one say you have to read them, you have to read the psukim, and the other one say you just have to put it on the mizbeach. During Sukkot and Shavuot, you just say you have to bring them to the Bet HaMikdash.
Right, but
So
that
there's
would
no
also be
machloket on that.
no, because between Sukkot and Shavuot, the second quote in the name Rabbi Yochanan is you just have to enter the courtyard, and the first quote in the name Rabbi Yochanan, you have to actually put it in front of the altar. Everyone agrees in Sukkot and Shavuot, there's no psukim to recite. Psukim is only between Shavuot and Sukkot. If you have to wait for psukim or not. Yes.
Shavuot and Sukkot or Sukkot and Shavuot.
So there's going to be again between Shavuot and Sukkot. There's recital psukim. Between Shavuot, but after Sukkot, between Sukkot and Shavuot, there's no recital psukim.
What is Rabbi about the
When did he separate it, Mark? If he separated between Shavuot and Sukkot, it has to be brought between. Once you separate, yeah, no one's arguing that. Everyone agrees. We haven't found anything. If you separate it between Shavuot and Sukkot, you must bring it between Shavuot and Sukkot. If you separate it that. If not, then at least according to right, it's not would have to write. Correct. Everybody agreed to that, right? No one. We haven't found any argument on that. Okay. Everybody agrees you have to put it in front of the mizbeach. The only question is, let's explain. Everyone agrees you have to read psukim, but the question is, how vital is it? Could the Kohen eat before it's placed in front of the mizbeach? Meaning to say, there's a mitzvah. What day? So according to this version, it says you don't have, even though you're supposed to put it in front of the mizbeach, but if you didn't do that, it's already permitted to the Kohen to eat it. Right. Sometimes in life, there are certain things you're supposed to do in life, but if you don't do it, it's still valid. It's not going to hold back the Kohen from eating. So even though you're supposed to, let's say, read the psukim according to let's say between Shavuot and Sukkot, but the rabbi says one quote of Rabbi Yochanan is, if you didn't read the psukim yet and the Kohen ate it, the Kohen can still eat it. Yes. Bare minimum, exactly. What's the bare minimum that has to be done in order for the Kohen to be able to eat it? So the Gemara says, Kasha kriya, kasha hanacha. We have a contradiction regarding how vitally important is the reading of the psukim, if that's going to hold the Kohen back from eating or not. So we have one statement that says the reading of psukim will hold the Kohen back, and one statement says the reading will not. So that's called kasha kriya. There's a contradiction of the reading of the psukim on the reading of the psukim, because you're telling me two opposite laws. And kasha hanacha. And we also have the contradiction of the placing of the fruits in front of the altar on the placing of the fruits from the altar. Because one place says the placing of the fruits on the altar is before the altar. It's key, and only until that is done, the Kohen can eat it. Another place says no, even if you don't place it in front of the altar, it's fine. So that's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answers how do we explain the apparent contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan? So the Gemara now explains the following: Kriya lo kasha. The contradiction regarding reading, kriya, reading, right? Vayikra al Moshe, the reading of psukim is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yochanan, that when Rabbi Yochanan made his statements, and he said the reading that must be done in order for the Kohen to eat it. He was explaining that wasn't a unanimous idea that he was saying. He was explaining according to Rabbi Shimon. That he was explaining Rabbi Shimon's opinion. So the fact that you hear Rabbi Yochanan says this statement, the Gemara thought that Rabbi Yochanan was talking according to all opinions. Rabbi Yochanan was saying this is the law. But the Gemara now is saying no. Rabbi Yochanan was explaining, he was talking about two different opinions. When he said that you must recite the verses in order, the psukim, in order for the Kohen to eat the first fruits, he was saying that's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. And when he was talking about the fact that you must place it in front of the altar, and the reading of the psukim is not as vital, that is the opinion of the Rabbanan. So Rabbi Yochanan was talking about, like, Ramosha Feinstein said this, holds this, and Rabbi Ovadia Yosef holds that. I'm talking about two different rabbis. When I might tell you one place you might hear me talk about the idea you have to read the psukim. I was referring to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. But then when I spoke about you don't need the psukim in order for the Kohen to eat it, I was talking about the Rabbanan. So that's what that he was referring to, the Rabbanan. Good morning, Charles. Thank you for joining. So that's the Gemara's first answer to get out of that apparent contradiction between the reading of psukim and the reading of psukim. Similarly, the Gemara said, Hanacha lokasha. One place where he said that the placement is the key, placing in front of the altar is the key. And the other place he says that you don't need to go ahead and place it in front of the altar. So the Gemara says, Ha Rabbi Yehuda and Ha Rabbanan. One opinion is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that says that the placement in front of the mizbeach is not ma'akeh. We're going to see it. We're going to see the opinion of Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says placing in front of the mizbeach does not hold you back, but the Rabbanan and the place where he says that you must place it in front of the altar, that's the opinion of the Rabbanan. Now the Gemara is going to explain. Where do we find these different opinions? Good morning, Yosef. Where do we find these opinions where is this Rabbi Yehuda? Right? Because we have, the Gemara says, my Rabbi Yehuda. Where's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? He says, the Tanya, we learned in a Braita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says the following. The pasuk says, V'hinachto. The pasuk says you need to place the bikurim in front of the mizbeach. What does the Torah mean when it says placing the bikurim in front of the mizbeach? What happens if you don't place it in front of the altar? Would you be able to eat would the Kohen be able to eat from the fruits? So he learns v'hinachto. The second v'hinachto zu tnufa. This v'hinachto means the waving. There are certain things, certain karbanot, certain things that there's a mitzvah of waving, that the Kohen has to go ahead and wave the item in all directions, all the up, down, and all four directions, north, south, east, and west. And obviously there's a purpose behind the waving, what it's, all the directions of the world, whether it's referring to the idea you should get bracha, blessing should come from all directions of the world, whatever the reason behind it, but there's something called tenufa. There's something called the waving. And he understands that the bikurim, when the Torah says v'hinachto, is the idea that there's this halacha by the first fruits, that you need to wave the first fruits in all different directions. We know by lulav, but we wave the lulav in all different. Yeah, we have one opinion that says you have to place it in front of the altar, in front of the mizbeach, and then we have another opinion that says, meaning if you don't place it in front, the Kohen can't eat it. Right. There's one opinion that says just when you walk in and you came into the court, that's good enough. You don't even have to place it in front of the mizbeach. Right. So that the Gemara now. We're going to see who the Gemara is going to identify that says that. The Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan made two statements. one statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan said that you have to place it in front of the altar. That was one statement. And then the other statement was, he says you don't even have to place it in front of the altar. You could just even actually just enter the courtyard would be good enough.
So either way, we could eat.
Right.
Better to put in front of the altar, according to everyone.
Everybody,
But you can't just bring it in and eat it.
but, yeah, but it's still a contradiction because one place says that both were statements of Rabbi Yochanan, but if we will attribute both statements of his own opinion, then it will be a contradiction. Because one place Rabbi Yochanan says the only time you can eat from the first fruits, the Kohen, is when you actually place it in front of the altar. And the other time he says you don't even need to place it in front of the altar. You could just enter the courtyard. So that's the contradiction of his own words. So you have to say he's talking according to two different opinions. He's going according to two different, when he was explaining different opinions. The opinion that one opinion was according to one rabbi, and one opinion was according to a different rabbi. So that's why it's not a contradiction. It's not him. It's not talking his own words. He's explaining this opinion says you have to place it in front of the altar, and the other opinion says you don't have to place it in front of the altar. So the Gemara says, right, he's talking with two different rabbis. So the pasuk, right, there's two, very good, there are two psukim. There is one pasuk that says, one pasuk says, V'nicho l'fnei Hashem, I think it's one of the language of the psukim. One pasuk says you place it in front of Hashem, and there's another pasuk that says v'hinachto l'fnei Hashem. See, one pasuk says v'hinicho l'fnei mizbach Hashem akecha. One says you place it in front of the Be'ach, and one pasuk says v'hinachto. So both sound like the same thing, placing. So one opinion says the Torah. Why does the Torah repeat itself twice? Why does the Torah have to repeat itself to say you got to place it in front? By repeating it, you're emphasizing that this is vitally important in order for you to fulfill, for the Kohen to eat it. So one opinion says the repetition of Vahinichol in front of the Mizbeach is telling us if you don't do that, then you cannot go ahead and eat. The Kohen can't eat from the first fruits. Like the Torah repeats Shabbat so many times. Because Shabbat is so basic to Judaism, I repeat it so many times. It's so basic to therefore, similarly, the Torah repeats this law of placing the first fruit in front of the altar to say, according to one opinion, to teach you that it's a must. That if you don't place the fruits in front of the altar, the Kohen can't eat it. But the other Rabbi Yehuda says no. He does not interpret the verse of the second placing. He doesn't translate the pasuk to referring to placing. Mr. Safdie, he says v'hinachto means to wave, because he reads the pasuk because he reads the pasuk as if it's v'hinchito. V'hinchito means to direct, like the pasuk says v'nocha Elokim. God did not direct, guide, lead the Jewish people in a certain direction. So he didn't want to. When we came out of Egypt, he didn't lead us to the land of the land of the Plishtim, because if you lead us through the land of the Plishtim, God was afraid the people would just come right back to Egypt. So he led us in a roundabout way coming out of Egypt. So that's what the Gemara is saying. He's understanding that when the Torah says that you put when the Torah says v'hinachto, it's the second language of placing does not mean placing. See, this word could also refer to directing, leading, which means which could be referred to, you direct the fruits in multiple directions. When you bring the fruits, you direct it up and you direct it down, and you come this side, you wave it all different directions. So he's learning, according to him, there's no repetition of the idea of placing the fruits in front of, we're talking about the first fruits, the bikurim. There's no repetition of the Torah to emphasize that you must place the first fruits in front of the mizbeach, in front of the altar, when you're bringing it as a gift. Rather, according to him, the Torah only tells us once you place it in front of the altar. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Torah says only once you have to place it in front of the altar. So, but if you it doesn't emphasize that if you didn't do that, the Kohen can't eat it. Since it only tells us once, so he says even if you didn't actually put it in front of the altar, the Kohen could still eat it. Very good. There is a pasuk which sounds very similar, which sounds like it says twice the placing in front of the altar. One pasuk I'm reading to you is V'hinicho l'fnei Hashem, and one pasuk is V'hinachto. Very similar words. So one opinion on this translates, which is the more literal translation, is they both mean to place in front. And because of his understanding that it means you have to place it in front of the Mizbeach, and the Torah emphasizes it, repeats it, it's telling you, Nisim, that if you don't do this, if you don't place it in front of the Mizbeach, you cannot, the Kohen can't eat it. Rabbi Yehuda translates the verse differently. Even though it sounds like it's saying the same thing, he said the root is coming, it's a different word in the second pasuk, and he interprets the second pasuk not to place it in front of the altar, but to wave it in front. That's how he's translating it. And because he translated to wave it, we don't have a repetition of placing, and therefore the placing is not as vital in order for the Kohanim to eat those first fruits. Is it clear what we're saying? Okay. So that's what the Gemara says. My Rabbi Yehuda, where do we find Rabbi Yehuda this idea that he goes on record and he says the placing is not vital? You could just there's no repetition of placing. So the Gemara says the Tanya, we learned in a Breita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, V'hinachto, the second pasuk where it talks about which seems like it's talking about placing. He says V'hinachto zdu tnufa. It's referring to the waving of the first fruits. When you're bringing the first fruits, you have to wave it in all 6 directions. So the Gemara now he said, Ata Omer du tnufa. You're telling me that it refers to tnufa, or maybe Eino ela lanacha mamash. Maybe it actually means placing the fruits in front of the altar, which would more be the simple translation. So he says no. Kishu Omer. It says already we have a previous pasuk that tells v'nicho. We have another verse, pasuk Dalet, that says you placed it in front of the Mizbeach. So in pasuk Yud, in pasuk number 10, we don't need to repeat that. So he understands the Torah is not repeating it. We already told us you have to place it. You don't have to repeat it again. How do I explain v'inachto? What does v'inachto come to teach you? It's come to teach you zut tnufa. It's come to teach you that you have to go ahead and wave it. And since it's telling us waving it, it did not tell us the idea that you have to go ahead. It didn't repeat the idea of placing in front of the altar. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, even if you did not place it in front of the altar, you have still, the Kohen could still eat the first fruits. Ideally, you should wait till, but if he didn't do it and the Kohen ate it, he's a right to eat it. He's a right to eat it. So the Gemara says, Uman Tana de Pol Rabbi Yehuda. Who is the Tana that says no? You have to place it in front of the altar. Man Tana de Pol Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. He says you must place the first fruits in front of the altar. Like the way we try to explain it, maybe you put it in front of the altar like that. That shows you like you gave it to Hashem. Okay, and the Kohanim eat it. The Tanya, we learned in a Breita. The Lokach HaKohen, the pasuk says the Kohen takes Hateneh miyadecha. The pasuk says the Kohen takes the basket from your hand. You, the Yisrael, you bring the seven species of the land of Israel, right? The first fruits are only from the 7 species, and they're like representatives of all the fruits. They're like the ambassadors of all the fruits. You don't have to bring first fruits of your apples and your oranges. Only the first fruits of your dates, your pomegranates, your figs, the 7 species of the land of Israel.
Olives,
And
almonds.
what'd you say?
I said olives, almonds.
I mean dates. Wait, what? Olives,
figs, barley,
olives, dates, figs,
olives, yeah.
pomegranates, wheat, barley. These are what? Not almonds is not it's not from the 7 species. Almonds is not from the 7
Got
species.
it.
Okay.
Kedim, I was thinking about Yaakov.
Right. So the Gemara says. Li made Rabbi that Bikurim needs nufa. He learns from the pasuk, "V'lokach hakohen hatena miyadecha." That pasuk says that you go ahead and he teaches us that you have to wave the first fruits. Now, what is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? The fact that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he learns waving from a different pasuk, right? Rabbi Yehuda said, how do you know you need to wave the first fruits that you bring to the Beis HaMikdash? Yehuda says, because v'hinachto, he translates the word v'hinachto means from like v'hinchito. You're directing that. He translates the second v'hanacha as waving. However, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov does not come up with waving from that pasuk. He comes up with waving from another pasuk, and the Gemara will see tomorrow. How does he see it from that other pasuk? He has a third pasuk. Okay, Rabbi, we're dealing now with 3 psukim. V'hinicho lifnei Hashem Elokecha, v'hinachto lifnei Hashem Elokecha, and now we're introducing a third pasuk. V'lokach hakohen hatena miyadecha. So if you learn waving from the second pasuk of v'hinachto, so then you never have the Torah repeating the placement. Let's repeat that again. If you learn the waving from pasuk number 2 of V'hinachto, so if you learn that from pasuk number 2, you have no pasuk teaching you the idea of that we have no repetition of placing the first fruits in front of the altar. So if you have no repetition of placing the first fruits in front of the altar, because you use the second pasuk, tell me you have to wave the first fruits that you bring to the Mikdash. Therefore, the placing does not hold the Kohen back from eating the first fruits. However, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who learns waving from a third pasuk, then he has the first 2 psukim available for placing it in front of the altar. Therefore, it says it twice, and therefore you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you cannot eat it. You cannot eat the first fruit. Okay, so do we have to see that? We have to see tomorrow. What is the other? How to deal with that? Great question, Mark. Okay, want to wish everyone a great day. Thank you all for the beautiful crowd and everybody coming and both on the screen and live.
Rabbi, what was Mark's question?
Mark's question is, once, according to the opinion that says that we're going to use the pasuk for wave, the second pasuk we're going to use for waving, what is he going to do with the third pasuk? Because then we have 2 psukim tell us the idea of waving. That's what he wants to know.
Rabbi, one for the reading of the psukim, and one for the mizbeach.
I mean,
Got it
they
down.
got it.
Amen.
Amen. What's going on? Yes, Yaron, you were saying something? Someone saying something? We want to wish everyone a beautiful day, everybody. Yeah, have a great day. Take care, bye-bye.
I hate that I'm in a position where I have to check, you know?